It's strange, isn't it, how lately, even on the best of days, something still feels off. You wake up, the sun filters through your curtains, you make your coffee, you go through your routine. On the surface, nothing is wrong. But there's this subtle weight in the air, like the world is breathing differently, like there's a faint hum in the background that you can't quite locate, but it's always there. Maybe you've noticed it when scrolling through your phone late at night, or in the middle of a conversation where you suddenly feel detached, like you're watching yourself speak from a distance. Life hasn't stopped, but it feels like it's been rearranged. It's not one big event you can point to, not a single breaking point you can name. It's 1,000 tiny fractures, barely visible on their own, but together they form a pattern. The roads still have cars, the stores still have shelves, people still laugh and post pictures of their dinners, and yet the undercurrent feels colder. Conversations feel shorter, patience feels thinner, trust feels more fragile. You feel it in the pace of things. There's no pause anymore, no natural ebb and flow. Everything has to move faster, be optimized, compressed into bite-sized moments. We consume news in fragments, relationships in highlights, entertainment in seconds. There's no room to let life breathe, and when life can't breathe, neither can we. We've built a world where connection is everywhere, and intimacy is rare. You can message anyone at any time, but somehow the conversations feel hollow. We can see more faces than ever before, yet fewer feel familiar. Our lives are overflowing with input, but starving for meaning. The strangest part is how normal it's all begun to feel. The constant alerts, the rapid-fire headlines, the endless feeds. We adapt because that's what humans do. We adjust to the temperature of the water without realizing it's slowly heating up. And maybe that's the most unsettling thing of all. We've gotten so used to feeling unsettled that we can't remember what it was like before. There's this quiet erosion happening, and it's not just in the headlines or the big societal changes. It's in the way people look away instead of saying hello. It's in the way we spend more time documenting a moment than living it. It's in the unspoken agreement that we're all a little too tired to ask each other how we're really doing, because we're not sure we have the energy to hear the answer. You can call it the breakdown of society if you want, but that makes it sound like some grand, distant collapse. In reality, it's more like a slow leak, one that's been happening for years. You don't notice it at first. You patch it with distractions, with productivity, with self-improvement checklists, but the water keeps escaping, and you keep feeling a little emptier without knowing why. And it's not because people are bad, or because we've somehow lost the capacity for kindness. If anything, people are more aware than ever that something is wrong. You see it in the way strangers share small smiles when something absurd happens in public, in those fleeting moments where humanity feels alive again. We're not broken in the sense of being beyond repair, but we are scattered, fragmented, pulled in 100 directions at once until we're not sure which way is forward anymore. The truth is, society didn't just start to unravel overnight. It's been slowly rewired, and so have we. The pace of information, the pressure to perform, the constant need to signal that we're okay even when we're not. It wears on you. It wears on all of us. The more we're told we can have it all, the more we feel the absence of the things we can't seem to touch. Quiet, depth, closeness, trust. And maybe that's why everything feels so off lately, because deep down, we're mourning things we can't fully name. We miss conversations that stretch late into the night without anyone checking their phone. We miss the feeling of knowing our neighbors not just by their names, but by the sound of their laugh. We miss slow days where the hours felt generous instead of rushed. We've been told to adapt, to move forward, to embrace the new ways. And yes, change is inevitable. But adaptation without reflection is just surrender in disguise. If we never pause to ask what we're trading away, we wake up one day realizing we've given up the very things that made life feel alive. Look closely and you'll see it. The constant pressure to present yourself in ways that can be consumed, liked, or shared. The way moments are curated instead of experienced. The way opinions harden faster than understanding can grow. The way headlines aren't designed to inform, but to ignite a reaction before you've even thought it through. We used to be able to disagree without seeing each other as enemies. We used to value the slow build of trust over the quick dopamine hit of a viral moment. Now it's as if the volume is always turned up and no one can hear the softer notes anymore. It's not that the world has become purely bad. Beauty still exists, in music, in nature, in kindness. But it's harder to feel it when our senses are flooded with noise. It's harder to trust it when it's surrounded by so much manufactured urgency. And maybe you felt it in yourself, that creeping sense that you're moving through life at arm's length, that you're reacting more than you're choosing, that your days are filling up with things that feel urgent but not important. You go to bed tired but not fulfilled. You wake up wired but not inspired. And somewhere along the way, the question that really matters gets lost. What is all this actually for? If you've been feeling that quiet disconnection, you're not alone. In fact, it might be one of the most common experiences of our time. The reason it feels so personal is because it is. It's happening inside you. But the reason it feels so big is because it's also happening everywhere. The breakdown isn't a single event, it's a climate. One where the air is just a little too thin for our hearts to fully expand. Where we're constantly adjusting to the next shift before we've recovered from the last. Where we've mistaken constant stimulation for genuine connection. We are, all of us, trying to navigate a reality that asks us to be available all the time, but rarely present. To be seen constantly, but rarely known. To move faster and faster, while quietly wondering if maybe what we really need is to slow down. And that's where the quiet crisis begins, not in the loss of technology or the advance of it, but in the slow erosion of our inner lives, when you can't remember the last time you felt truly still, when you start to believe that rest is a luxury instead of a necessity, when your value begins to feel like it's measured in output instead of presence. Some part of you remembers a different way of living. Even if you didn't live it yourself, it lives in you. A memory of slower mornings, of conversations without interruptions, of communities that felt woven together instead of loosely connected through screens. That longing you feel isn't nostalgia for a specific decade. It's a deep recognition that something essential is missing from the way we're living now. And here's the thing, recognizing it is not weakness. Feeling it is not failure. It's the beginning of remembering who we are underneath all the noise. It's the first crack in the shell of numbness that modern life wraps around us. Because if we can name the feeling, this sense that everything is slightly tilted, slightly wrong, then maybe we can start to trace its outline. And once we see the outline, we can choose whether or not we keep living inside it. And maybe that's the part that feels the heaviest, the quiet knowing that we can't fully go back. That the version of life we once had, or thought we had, is now just a memory replayed in a softer tone, like a song we used to love but can't listen to the same way anymore. We've all been rewired in some way, subtly or dramatically. Our attention span shortened, our thresholds for discomfort lowered, our instinct for patience worn thin. And the worst part is, we don't even notice most of it anymore. We just keep moving, keep scrolling, keep consuming, as if that's the only way to stay afloat. It's strange how often we convince ourselves we're fine. We tell ourselves this is just how the world is now, that adaptation is survival, that we have to toughen up. But deep down, in those moments before sleep, or in the middle of a quiet car ride, we feel the truth. We feel the disconnection. We feel the hollow ring of conversations that used to feel full. We feel the way laughter now carries a little static. The way joy comes in quick bursts instead of steady waves. I think part of the reason everything feels off lately is because we've lost the luxury of slow living. There's no more breathing room between moments. Even the smallest pockets of stillness get filled. With noise, with content, with someone else's opinion. The soul is suffocating under constant input. And yet, silence now feels almost threatening. Because in silence, we're forced to meet ourselves again. And many of us aren't sure if we like who we've become. We've also learned to mask our fatigue, to function through emotional exhaustion like it's just part of adulthood. And maybe it is, but this kind of exhaustion is different. It's not just the tiredness of a long day. It's the tiredness of carrying the weight of a world that feels like it's quietly unraveling. We sense the instability even when we can't name it. We notice the cracks even when everyone around us insists it's fine. There's a subtle grief in realizing the systems, the routines, the unspoken rules that shaped our lives might no longer hold us the way they used to. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The breakdown of society doesn't usually happen with dramatic explosions or headline events. More often, it happens slowly, quietly, in the small daily compromises we make with our own humanity. When we start to accept that relationships can be disposable, when we get used to the idea that attention is a currency, when we measure worth by visibility instead of depth, we think we're just adjusting to the times, but really we're losing pieces of something ancient inside us. I don't believe people are broken beyond repair, but I do think we've been stretched too far for too long. And now, even when we try to rest, our minds don't know how to unclench. Our bodies still brace for impact. Our hearts still expect disappointment. It's like we're living in a constant state of subtle defense, never quite relaxed, never quite open, always just a little bit guarded. And when everyone is guarded, intimacy becomes rare. Real connection becomes rare. We start defaulting to small talk, safe jokes, and shallow shares because going deeper feels like too much work. But underneath all that, I think people are starving for it. For the kind of closeness that makes you feel seen without having to explain yourself. The kind of presence where you can exhale and not feel like you have to perform. We miss it, we crave it, and yet we're scared to ask for it because vulnerability now feels like a gamble. Sometimes I wonder if we've mistaken constant awareness for wisdom. We know so much more now about the world, about problems, about suffering. But knowing isn't the same as understanding, and understanding isn't the same as healing. In fact, the overload of awareness can keep us stuck in a loop of worry and helplessness, where we see everything but feel powerless to change any of it. That kind of mental overload can make the whole world feel heavier than it actually is. But still, I don't think it's hopeless. Because buried in this exhaustion, in this disconnection, in this strange emptiness we're all feeling, there's also the faintest pull towards something simpler, towards reclaiming the parts of life that can't be digitized, monetized, or replaced, towards remembering that peace is not something handed to us, it's something we build, choice by choice, moment by moment. We might not be able to rebuild society overnight, but we can start with smaller foundations. Choosing depth over distraction in just one conversation, choosing presence over performance in one interaction, choosing to create a little pocket of stillness in our own lives, even if the rest of the world is still spinning in chaos. These are small rebellions, but they matter. They remind us that while we can't control the whole system, we can still protect the parts of ourselves that make life feel worth living. And maybe the world does feel off because we've been living so far away from what we actually need. Maybe the breakdown isn't just out there. Maybe it's in here, in the way we've forgotten how to feel safe without constant validation, how to feel full without constant consumption. But breakdowns, as painful as they are, can also clear the ground for something better, something truer, something built with hands instead of algorithms, with community instead of commentary. So yes, everything feels off lately. The air feels heavier, the days feel shorter, and the people feel a little less certain. But if we can sit with that feeling, really sit with it instead of numbing it away, we might start to see the outlines of what's missing. And once we see it, we can start to shape it. Not for the sake of nostalgia, but for the sake of survival. The kind of survival that doesn't just keep us alive, but keeps us human. Because even in a world that feels like it's slowly unraveling, the smallest acts of honesty, kindness, and presence are threads that, if enough of us hold on to them, might just weave something strong enough to carry us forward. And maybe that's the quiet truth we've been avoiding, that we are the society we think is breaking down, which means if we change, it changes too.